1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So here's the thing. It's the thing about things. That's the thing. Just about everything. What's that thing? The same old thing. This is Sam and he's gonna teach us something.
Hello and welcome to Wise of History's Thingasodes, where yes, stop asking, it is No Shave November. I get it looks weird, okay? The holiday season is approaching here in the US, and we thought it would be a perfect time to be all topical and whatnot and look at the history of one of the holidays.
Sam, I just gotta let you know, I'm fine with this idea, but I hate the holidays. I hate the season, I hate the festive nonsense, I hate everything that is involved with it, so it's probably best if I sit this guy out, lest they really start, grinching up.
Jordan, just relax, man. How bad could it get? Seriously. So, for most people in the US, Jordan apparently excluded, the season between late November and New Year's is a time of festivity, family, food, sparkly lights, time spent in department stores, the same 6 holiday TV movies, some parade in New York City, and Jon Stewart's inevitable segment about people screaming about the war on Christmas. It's an undeniable and unmissable fixture of American culture that somehow manages to be both ever-changing and timeless. But where did it all come from? In this episode, we're going to attempt to answer that by looking at the holiday that starts the whole thing off, Thanksgiving. Most people are familiar with the classic Thanksgiving story. In 1620 CE, a group of settlers on a ship called the Mayflower left England for the Americas and established a colony in Plymouth in the Massachusetts Bay. These pilgrims, hardline Puritans who had fled England to avoid religious persecution, suffered immensely during the 2-month journey across the Atlantic and were woefully unprepared for the harsh New England winter. After barely surviving their first winter, they were introduced to an Abenaki Native American named Tisquantum, often known as Squanto, who taught the settlers how to survive in the unfamiliar New England environment. Tisquantum helped broker an alliance between the Plymouth settlers and the local Wampanoag Confederation, and it was these two groups that sat down to the original Thanksgiving after the first successful Plymouth colony corn harvest in 1621. The celebration lasted 3 days and saw feasting, hunting, entertainment, and general fraternity between the two groups. It was from this remarkable and wonderful encounter—
Hold on, Sam. While that theory is pretty well documented and is definitely the inspiration for Thanksgiving, there are some issues with how we venerate it. To the main screen, ho!
Oh, here we go.
Firstly, this celebration wasn't even that unique to the Plymouth Pilgrims. There are Thanksgiving services that occurred in both Newfoundland and Florida in the 1500s, and settlers in Maine in 1607 and Jamestown in 1610 both held Thanksgiving celebrations. The Thanksgiving festival/holiday was rooted in English and Puritan traditions, though it should be mentioned that a similar harvest time celebration was a common tradition with many Native Americans, people back in Europe, and really with most agricultural societies across the globe. Secondly, it's worth noting that the classic story leaves out a lot of the complexity involving the relationship between the Wampanoag and the Pilgrims. The only reason that Tisquantum and the Wampanoag didn't just wipe the malnourished Pilgrims off the map was because the Wampanoag tribes had recently been devastated by European diseases, and they hoped that an alliance with the gun and cannon wielding foreigners would protect them against their now much more powerful rival tribes. The irony was, by allowing the Plymouth settlement to survive and thrive, the Wampanoag opened the floodgates for thousands of Europeans to land in the Massachusetts Bay, ultimately outnumbering and eventually defeating the natives in 1670. Alright, back to the box.
Thanks for that, Jordan. So the Plymouth settlers held another Thanksgiving in 1623, and the tradition would soon be sporadically observed on a local level throughout the American colonies. Thanksgiving first received national attention in 1789, when George Washington called for November 26th to be a day of prayer and thanks for the freedom of the American people and their shiny new Constitution. Every president through Madison declared at least one Thanksgiving day during their tenure,
with the exception of Jefferson, who saw calling for a day of prayer and thanks as blurring the lines between church and state.
Though the holiday remained a mostly state and local affair until Sarah Josepha Hale, a writer and editor, successfully petitioned Abraham Lincoln to restore the national holiday in 1863. Lincoln, hoping to ride the wave of optimism after the Union victory at Gettysburg, and looking for any excuse to promote unity and positivity, declared that the fourth Thursday in November would be a national day of thanks, and Thanksgiving as we know it was codified. Thanksgiving remained relatively unchanged until 1939, when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt moved the date up 1 week to the second to last Thursday in November. Thanksgiving came very late in November in 1939 and 1940, and FDR hoped that moving the date up a week would serve as a boost to the usual Christmas shopping season, a powerful prospect for the country in the midst of the Great Depression. This sudden change of date threw off important school, sports, and government schedules around the country, and the new date was not universally accepted and was often lampooned as Franksgiving. In 1941, Congress put the issue to rest by setting the day permanently at the fourth Thursday of November, and the date has since stuck. Notable post-FDR additions to the Thanksgiving holiday include the annual presidential turkey pardoning,
a tradition started by Ronald Reagan to dodge questions about the Iran-Contra affair,
and the new, somewhat scary tradition of Black Friday creeping into Thanksgiving itself.
That sounds depressing. I want to do a rant. Sam, it's your turn in the tiny box at the top of the screen.
Wait, what?
So one of the reasons FDR was so set on extending the Christmas shopping season was because until fairly recently, it was considered poor taste for shops and retailers to advertise for Christmas before Thanksgiving. In fact, Thanksgiving Day parades, like the famous Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade in New York, often ended the parade with a Santa Claus float to officially signal the beginning of the Christmas shopping season the following day. Now, the term Black Friday has its roots in Philadelphia in the late 1950s and early 60s, where policemen began to christen the days following Thanksgiving as Black Friday and Black Saturday due to the chaotic traffic caused by the shopping rush. Newspapers popularized the term, and in the 1980s, retailers began pushing the whole, it's called Black Friday because that's the day stores start going in the black thing. Which is all kind of ironic because this is really the only Black Friday in history that has ever attempted to represent a good thing. Before the 1980s, Black Friday in the US usually referred to massive financial panics in 1869 and 1870.
I made it out of the box. Now get your long-haired, goofy-bearded, black-hearted, holiday-hating face out of my chair.
This isn't the last you'll see of me. Hey, me. While I'm editing this, add in like a smoke effect and a dramatic exit sound. Thanks.
Ultimately, while the ideals of Thanksgiving may not be that unique to the United States, the ideal of setting aside time to give thanks especially resonated with Americans. After all, early Americans were often living in harsh, unfamiliar, and unpredictable environments, and the nation itself was formed on the back of a revolution with many of its institutions and ideals fairly unproven. Stability and consistency were not common facets of early American life, and it makes sense that people would gravitate towards a festival appreciating what they have. And Thanksgiving really does seem to represent a lot of what America stands for. A relatively timeless holiday, both religious and secular, that dates back to the earliest European settlers. A holiday combining Old World and New World traditions, food, and culture into a festival that appreciates just how fortunate Americans can be. And for you Jordans out there,
what says America quite like watching something devoted to appreciation for one's friends and family slowly get devoured by giant corporations trying to get you to buy stuff?
Thank you very much for watching.
And we here at Wise of History hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
If you want to watch some of the other cool stuff we've been working on, click over here on Jordan's head.
Oh!
Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you all next time.
With the exception of Jefferson, who saw calling for, and I'm probably gonna mess this up because the sentence is awkward.
Blurred lines between your church and state. Between the church and state.
Between the church and Jefferson, no! Didn't call Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Alright, that was...
Dude couldn't have fun. He wears a red wig. Okay.
Thanks, Sam. When we do our Wise of History soundtrack, Wise of History collaboration with Weird Al, then we'll totally... All right.